Hello, movie lovers. Welcome home. My name is Amy Henserling, and you are listening to Watch This List Unplugged. Today is a very special day for me because I am ending the Hidden Gems Unplugged series. The first one I did was Midnight Movies, which was, I suppose, its own special version of fun. But Hidden Gems is a lot more my jam. So that ended up bearing a lot more fruit, a lot more faves for me. But I have my dear friend Joel back, the deaf kid on Letterboxd, with me to finish this off, which is fitting because when I had my first season, the last episode of that series was called Rewatch This List, which Joel and I did not know at the time was going to be the finale, but ended up being the finale of that series. So this just feels like I'm coming full circle to have him. And we're ending with his gems, which also feels like it's a good decision on my part. Joel, how are you doing? Are you glad to be back for the end of my series?
I am, and I feel like this must mean that when I record my episodes, we're going out on a high note, basically. It can't be topped,
Yes.
so why bother? Um,
So why bother? There's no one else but you, Joel. It has to end with you each time. It's kind of like with Frank. It always has to start with Frank. So this might have to be a trend where I start with Frank and end with you each time.
well, I didn't do an appearance for the Midnight Movies
Hmm.
series, but that's not my jam. I did enjoy a few of those. What was it called? Roar was amazing.
Yes.
Roar
I
was
think that Lau's movie was the one that the most people watched. Like
okay.
as a result of like of all the things that I've done, the response to Roar was it was quite something to behold because I kept seeing it come up and then I had to keep remembering the film.
Yeah, it really was incredible. I watched it with my dad. I watched it first by myself,
Hmm.
and was just amazed that this film could even exist. And then I watched it with my dad. I told my dad about it, and I was like, "We should watch this. It's hilarious." And we watched it, and he basically had the same reaction I did, where he just could not stop laughing. But for me, the second watch was even funnier because I was basically reduced to tears multiple times at how incredibly farcical the whole thing is.
Mortifying. It it's also one of those movies that truly, you know how people say like you have to see it to believe it?
Yeah.
This is that film,
Hmm. Hmm.
I feel.
It is.
Like you yeah.
Yeah, it really is. You have to see. You just cannot believe anybody would be so stupid to acquire hundreds of big cats. I don't know. Maybe hundreds is an exaggeration. Dozens of big cats. That seems appropriate. And
Mhm.
other large animals in Southern California, and shoot a movie over 6 years in which hundreds of people get injured. Yeah, without a proper animal wrangler or anything, and the fact that it's actually watchable. I mean, it's not good,
Mm.
it's good in the sense that it's so bad it's good. It really is one of those movies. Um, anyway, I'm forever grateful to Lau for
To
introducing me
Lao.
to that.
Yes, that was probably my most successful midnight film. But then for Hidden Gems, where you chose one that you and I had picked, you had picked actually
Hmm.
for our monthly watch list, and it was actually the month that we did colors in the title.
I was gonna bring that up. I remember. So we did like Yellow Sky and some other ones. But yeah, basically
Blue
movies with
Valentine.
color. Blue Valentine. I was
Uh-huh.
trying to remember the title. I knew it had blue in it, but I couldn't remember
Mm.
it. Yeah, Blue Valentine. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember any
Red
of the other
Dust.
titles. Red Dust. Okay, yeah.
Red Dust, White Heat.
White Heat. I knew there was a white in there somewhere.
Oh, the one that you didn't love, Raise the Red Lantern.
My opinion on that has altered a little bit. I appreciate it more in retrospect. I still don't like the main character at all, but
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
my it is such a beautiful film. Otherwise, like so stylistically distinct. Maybe it's not considered that distinct in its own tradition. What was that from Hong Kong or from mainland China? I don't know.
I don't know, actually. I don't remember that exactly.
I feel like
I
it was
know that
Hong Kong.
you didn't sympathize with her initially. Oh, also Joel, Blue Collar.
Oh, ooh, was that month? Blue
Yeah,
Collar was amazing. I love Blue Collar. I need to rewatch that.
I know. You were blown
Yeah,
away by that one.
I
Yeah.
was. I know we're getting digressing here a lot, but
Yeah,
the
it's
the
okay.
way they speak in there, I don't know how much they actually had a script versus how much was ad libbed or improvised. But the way they speak it's just such a. This is not how I speak, but it sounds like how normal people speak. I have a weird pattern of speech in my opinion. It seems like the way I speak is weird, but the way people speak when you just meet normies on the street, this is how they talk a lot of times, and it's such a celebration of that, an embrace of that. It's disgusting at times, but at the same time, there's just something very human and real about it. I love that movie. It's amazing. So
A
yeah,
lot of people do. That was one of Ebert's favorites too. I think that's why we ended up putting it
yeah.
on there because it
I
was
think that
from the
was
great movies list too.
Schrader's first movie, wasn't it? His first directorial movie.
Was it his first directed movie?
I
I
think it
want to
was.
say that
He had
doesn't
written
seem
some.
exactly right to me,
Okay.
well, I mean, you could be right. You could be right. You could be right. For
Well, he
some
wrote
reason, I
Taxi
thought that
Driver.
Gigolo was first. Yes, he
Yeah.
wrote Taxi Driver, but that was definitely Scorsese
Yeah.
directed. Obviously,
Right.
you know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we'll have to look this up. Somebody is probably screaming in their head right now,
What?
as often is the case.
Hmm.
Uh, that's like when Swart forgot Chunking Express, and we were going on about like the Wong Kar Wai movie, and then I got like 4 text messages afterwards, and they were like Chunking Express, and I was like, "Thanks, guys." Not helpful
Wait.
now, but thank you.
I I have not seen Schwartz episode yet. I have it saved to my YouTube playlist. Unfortunately,
Okay.
it's been really busy. I've had a bunch of huge podcasts come through lately, but I will listen to it,
Mm,
and I will.
mm.
I'll message you as well to let you know that it was Chunking
Thank
Express.
you. Thank you. I appreciate
I
that.
will not let that slide.
And I have to, you know what, actually, Joel. So before Joel and I started recording, he asked me what my new series was going to be after Hidden Gems. And what I'm going to do is instead of announcing it now, I'm going to announce it at the end. So you got to stick with me or you got to fast forward
Oh, they're going to
to
be sticking
hear
with
what the
us.
next thing is going to be.
They're here for me.
You think so? Yes. You're here for Joel. Forget
Yeah.
me. Forget Watch This List.
Yes, and of
Joel
course they
is the eye
must.
candy here.
That's the first time anyone said that about me, but
It's finale time. Cheers.
yeah,
Okay, so Joel, your first movie, your first film that we're going to cover is the Browning version, which is a based on a play by Terrence Rattigan.
Terrence
Yes,
Rattigan.
and
Yeah.
it's from 1951, directed by Anthony Asquith. Go ahead. I feel like we should speak in a British accent, but that would probably be too hard. But go ahead and set this up for us as if we had no idea what it was, which a lot of people probably don't.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is a hidden gem. I think I checked; it
It is
has
a
like
hidden gem.
4,000 logs, so it's definitely
Mm.
not very well known. So the movie is a story about a school teacher at a British prep school. Seems to be, according to the notes, it says a public school, but seems to be like a
Mm.
fancy school, boarding school, maybe. And
Like Dead Poets Society.
mhm, yeah, I'm not sure if it's
Yeah.
actually a boarding school. Now that I say that, but the kids are all dressed in suits. It's set. The movie is 1951. Feels like it's set earlier than that. It's definitely after World War II because they do make a reference to the war, uh,
Mhm.
which does become an important plot point actually when they mention that, or a turning point. It's not really okay. I'm getting distracted. So this teacher, whose name is Andrew Crocker Harris, nicknamed the Croc, which I think is such a great nickname for him. He's this sort of
Mhm.
listless, rundown man who's beaten down by life, and he is about to retire from this particular school because of ill health, and it's too much work. It's too hard on his heart condition, so he's going to go somewhere else. And he has this final day that is just like any other day, and it's kind of sad to watch him operate in class and see that the students don't really like him, except for one
Mm.
kid who kind of likes him. And then you find out over the course of the movie why he's so beat down by life, and it's really, really tragic, really hard to watch at times. It's a tearjerker in some scenes. It's also just it's really one of the best scripts that I've ever had the pleasure of hearing. the The way they turn a phrase in some of these scenes is amazing. I feel like that's a decent setup. Did I miss anything there?
Yeah, no, I think it's kind of in a way of sweet smell of success in the sense that the vitriol, like
Oh
the
yeah,
way that one of the characters is really cruel, uh is especially well written because she just it's so targeted to do maximum damage.
oh
So
yeah.
a lot of the lines are just brilliant in that sense, I think.
Yes, there's one particular scene. Actually, there's two different scenes, but one particular scene where how far do you want to go into the plot here?
Yeah, you go ahead. This is the
Okay.
finale, so we don't have to spoil everything, but I do whatever you feel like stands out to you that you want to point out that
Yeah.
will allow people to still enjoy.
Right. So because it's his final day, one of his students is a teenager. I think he's like 15 or so in the movie. His name is
Mm,
Caplo, and he is like I forgot to mention this earlier. Crocker Harris is a classics teacher, so he teaches Greek and Latin literature in the original language, and he's doing these
mm.
private lessons for Taplo on Agamemnon, which I'm not even sure if I said that correctly. Uh,
You
this
did. Well done.
cool, which is a play written by an ancient Greek playwright Aeschylus, who uh, we can get into the significance. That's why it's called the Browning version, because it's a reference to Robert Browning's translation. Anyway, he Taplow gives Crocker Harris a copy of the Browning version of Agamemnon, and there's a little inscription in Greek that Taplow writes, which is something like God from afar looks graciously upon a gentle master. I wish I remembered the exact line, but it's something like that. And Crocker Harris, who knows he's an absolute failure as a teacher, breaks down, cries, and has this moment of weakness where he feels happy that someone appreciated him, but he also feels really bitter because he knows that it's not true. Um, and then his wife comes in and tells him that Taplow was just sucking up to him to get a good grade or get a promotion. I'm not sure how the British school system works, but to get promoted to an upper class the next year. And the way in which she says it, like there's
Mm.
another guy in the room, and she just delivers it in this most venal, aggressive, hateful way. And there's another guy in the room who's like, "Don't do it. I know what you're doing, and don't do it." And she does it,
Don't
and she
say it.
just breaks his
Yeah.
spirit in that moment. And
Yeah.
it's one of the nastiest feelings I've ever had watching a scene. Like just, ooh, this woman is evil. Yeah.
It's like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, really,
Hmm.
the whole time, which is another Lehman, but like it's the same thing where it's just like someone knowing you so well that they can destroy you verbally.
Yeah.
There's something about that, and it's very present in this movie. She has a lot of pain herself, but I feel like it's masterfully done.
Hmm.
Each character, and their sort of interrelationships, because the person who's standing there listening to her say that is also the person that she is having the affair with.
Yes.
And so it's like he obviously is sort of complicit in, um, you know, the sort of like not caring about Crocker Harris as a
Yeah.
person, right? The
Hmm.
disrespect of that. But then for the first time, he's seeing his lover as she is.
Yes.
So there's a lot going on, and it's quite deep.
Yeah. Like you can tell early on the guy who's having the affair with Crocker Harris's wife. His wife is Millie. His name is Frank Hunter, I think, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't really like her that much. You can see that he's just sort of having this affair because it's available.
Pity,
And
and
there,
it's there, right?
yeah,
Right.
yeah, and there's a sense too. You get the feeling from some other lines that she's slept with quite a few of the staff members there over the time period. I mean, it's 18 years, I think they said that Crocker Harris has been there. So you get that feeling, although I'm not 100% sure. But he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really like her. There's hesitance of whether he wants to even carry on this affair any longer. But when he sees her do that to him, and he likes Crocker Harris, he's not a great friend, obviously. He's
Right, right, right.
stooping his wife, but yeah, he likes Crocker Harris, and he sees her do that, and he's like, I've seen you as who you are. Um, there's a great scene too where Crocker Harris and Frank Hunter are talking, and he explains why it ended up this way. There's a lot of subtext going
Right.
on there, which I think relates to the scriptwriter Terrence Rattigan. It was originally based on a play about his personal life. I think it's pretty strongly hinted that Terrence Rattigan wrote Crocker Harris as gay uh, at a time when that was, of course, not at all acceptable. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of bitterness there and a lot of love that's turned sour. He has that line. Crocker Harris has that line where he says he didn't realize that not being able to provide one kind of love would drive out the other kind of love. So there's a lot of empathy for these characters, both of them, even though Millie is really really hateful by the end.
Right. But you could see over time how that they could end up that way. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's just such a rich character study, and it's not just about him. There's all three of them plus Taplow plus just the whole thing of like retirement, something coming to an end.
Mm-hmm.
Really, there's a lot of actual, I suppose, you can tell me what you think these. I would characterize these as moments of clarity or just like epiphanies. Like there's another time where he's talking to his replacement teacher,
Mm.
and the teacher has one line that he says, which also destroys him, and sort of oh, like all of a sudden he sees how other people think of him, and it just shatters the illusion of, well, I thought I was pretty good. I thought I was okay. Turns out I'm not. So this movie is just full of these moments where someone does something or says something and there's a switch. It goes
Yes.
from like, and then you can't go back. Like
Mm-hmm.
once you have that change,
Yeah.
you're done. Like you are changed,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah.
And it's not by choice.
That line. He tries to the guy who says that to Crocker Harris. I did the replacement. I don't remember his character's name, but he says that they tell me something like you're known as the Himmler of the lower fifth, and he tries to cover for himself, like that this was a reference
And
to how well he,
apologize.
yeah, but a reference to how well he disciplines the class. But of course, it also, I mean, I'm not sure how well Himmler was, that name would have been known at this time. I'm assuming
Mm.
maybe it would be it probably would be better known than today, actually, given the way what people know about history. But it not exactly. Yeah, sure, okay, disciplinarian, but also maybe a little bit of a humorless scold, maybe genocidal maniac coded in there. Not
Yeah.
exactly a positive uh, thing to call somebody, even if it is meant in a just as a disciplinarian. It contains so much more, and you can see, yeah, how he figures out who he remembers suddenly who Himmler was. He's a classics teacher. He maybe isn't that familiar, but he remembers, and then, oh, I get it. This is what the headmaster thinks of me, not just the students. Um, yeah, it is
Right.
a really devastating moment in the film. Um, I,
It's a heartbreaking movie on a lot of levels, really. And there's like but it's a movie that slowly unveils truths about his life.
mhm.
And I think in that sense, that's why it's so powerful, because it's letting the truth come in, even though it's painful, at least it's accurate and he can do something about it.
Yes, and I think that last part is especially apt. He can do something about it. Um, Obviously, a lot of movies, they have these moments where characters have to change, right? And he sort of has that epiphany as well, and he has a chance as well because he's going to a new school uh, soon. So I don't want to
Right.
tell what happens at the end, but really, this film is about sort of realizing that your life isn't over yet, even if you have squandered a huge amount of it uh, in unhappiness, in bitterness, and he takes that opportunity. At least partly. We don't really see a whole lot. The movie ends kind of at the end of the school term, but
Mhm.
we get the feeling that he is going to do something positive at that point. Hopefully so.
Yeah.
It's an uplifting movie at
There's a
the end, I think.
I think so too, and I think that it's just about finding some sort of hope that your life could be better,
Yeah.
or that you can find joy again. Or there's this whole other thing that happens with Taplow, this circumstance where he tells him how he was trying to do his own version,
Oh yeah.
and make poetry himself. And so there's this thing of like that he has all this creativity, and he says it in such a British, like an English way of like, I thought it was quite good. It's like so understatement of like how good it probably was, but he quite liked it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And it's
there's
not
a lot of
finished.
hope at the end.
It's not finished as
Right.
well, which I think is symbolic as well. Um, and it's a translation in verse of Agamemnon. It's its own translation, but
Right.
in poetic verse. And he eventually finds this copy that he had made and just forgotten about over the years, and then he actually throws it away. But then Taplow recovers it for him and says, you should finish this, and it's a pretty powerful
Yeah.
moment in my opinion. So, and there's
So does this speak
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Joe.
Okay, I will go ahead. There's
You should go.
the symbology, or whatever, that doesn't even sound like a word. Um, the meaning of that Agamemnon, a story about a guy who gets murdered by his wife, which I didn't even catch the first time, that because I don't really know the story that well. But when now seeing it for the second time, I'm realizing, oh, this is why it's called the Browning version. It's about Agamemnon, and Crocker Harris is Agamemnon, basically. He's this guy being killed by his wife, by the way, for justified reasons in a way. Agamemnon sacrifices their daughter, sacrifices his daughter to get favorability from the gods, and that his wife takes revenge on him for that. So there is a parallel there as well in choosing that for the story. Sorry, go ahead. That was my digression.
No, I was going to ask you, since you were a teacher for so long, does this reach you on that sort of level? Like, do you, because I feel like you have some kinship with Crocker Harris
I
as
do.
far as like, yeah, your personality or just sort of the way in which I feel like you would really care about your students in a certain way. I wondered if part of this reached you in that way specifically.
A little bit. I'm not going to compare myself to Crocker Harris. I'm actually quite happy with my life. Um,
No, I don't mean that way. I mean about your students, like the
sure,
conscientiousness.
sure. Yeah, like that feeling of being a failure as a teacher. I don't think I was a failure as a teacher. I
Oh,
feel
no, I
like
don't mean that, yeah.
the system was awful. I couldn't participate in it. Couldn't could not participate in that system any longer, which is why I stopped. It's also a bit of a dead end career wise, but
Mm,
um, I did relate to that sense that what can you do participating in this system, and it's a very oppressive system, even in the movie. This is not a system that I would want to participate in at all. I wouldn't want to be a teacher in this very rigid. Uh,
right.
yeah, so I related to that. I could see familiar aspects of what I remember as a teacher as well. Uh, so yeah, I a little bit, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the Browning version is excellent. It's streaming on the Criterion channel now. Check it out. There have been
Sorry.
adaptations since then. Oh yeah, go ahead, Joel.
Oh, sorry. It's on YouTube as well in HD. So if you don't have Criterion, um, I'm not sure.
If you don't have Criterion, get Criterion. Okay, there's no excuse for not having Criterion. Joel's trying to give you a way out. I'm giving you no way out. Joel. He can't even argue with me. But yes, YouTube. Thank you, Joel. Thank you. At least you didn't say Tubi. And this is an excellent film that we would have never seen if we hadn't done a color month. And Joel just happened to be looking for something with a different color in it, and that came up. Neither of us had heard of it. It also stars Michael Redgrave, who won Best Actor at Cannes, and the film won Best Screenplay at Cannes when it came out.
Did it? I
So
did not
his
know that.
his performance is excellent.
It is.
Yes,
It is.
yes, it's very very good.
I mean, Redgrave is a brilliant British actor anyway, so you're not. It's not surprising, but it's yeah, his performance is really you get the sense of what gets under his skin very well.
Mm,
And I don't mean that as it makes him angry. I just mean like you get a sense of how, what's the right phrase? The way he ticks, I guess. It's
yeah,
it's brilliant. It's a great performance.
it's pathos. Okay, so the next one is a short film, which since this is the finale, that is my one and only. Called Railrodder. Railrodder. It is starring Buster Keaton from 1965. Tell us why you chose this, Joel, and when did you see it for the first time?
So answer the second question first. I saw it earlier this year.
Mm,
I saw it twice, back to back almost. Loved it from the first viewing. I have been doing a bit of a Buster Keaton dive, going into some of his lesser known films this year, and this is easily the best of the bunch so far. It's
mm,
you wouldn't think of it. I think it's just not known because it's in the '60s as opposed to his heyday in the '20s. And just shout out, this
mm.
is my Buster Keaton shirt. Um,
I noticed that at the
yeah,
beginning.
yeah,
Good work. Well done. I like it.
yeah. Uh,
It's very subtle.
mhm. Yeah, you really only know because
Like
of
you'd
the
have to
hat.
know.
You
Right,
have to
right,
know the
right.
hat. Uh,
Yeah,
so I've been
yeah.
doing sort of this diving into his films again, because I absolutely love
Mm.
Buster Keaton. And sort of in that process, I found out that, oh, he had this sort of revival in the 60s where, after a long period of obscurity, started doing TV, movies. He appears in, has a cameo in A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum in 1964, I think. That's a Sondheim musical adaptation.
Mm.
Just a bit part. He has a few funny lines. And then he had a bunch of short films that he released. There's one called Film, which is an experimental little thing. I didn't much like it. It's surreal.
Mm.
It's a silent film. I didn't get much out of it. But then he also has The Scribe, which is him as a journalist investigating workplace safety practices. And it's not nearly as funny as that sounds like it should be. Um,
Yeah.
but then there's this one, The Railroader, which I don't know if it's pronounced Railroader or Railroader, but
I'm gonna say Roder, but it could be Roder,
yeah, I don't know.
definitely.
Um, but
Yeah. With,
he plays this British guy who, it's a silent film. All the sound effects are overdubbed. It has a very cartoony
mhm.
feel as well, like old Warner Brothers cartoons with the sound effects. But he plays this British guy who is standing on a bridge in London, and he opens the newspaper. There's an advertisement, just says "See Canada Now," and he is hypnotized. He has this vision of what Canada is like, and he comes to the top of the bridge, jumps into the water, and then the movie's first really good gag, there was a cut to him trudging out of the Atlantic Ocean onto the Canadian shore. It's a really, it's a pretty funny gag that starts out the movie, and then he travels across the country. Uh, so I don't. I feel like I've been talking a lot. Do you want to say something there?
Well, so this is something that you just ended up seeing because you're focusing on Keaton. Another film that we watched together was The Cameraman, which we
Yes.
both really loved,
Yes.
and was exceptional.
Mm-hmm.
This one is only 25 minutes, so it's pretty brief. It's pretty silly, I would say. But it's interesting to me how age plays such a factor because you can obviously see, since he's older, his ability to sort of move in that graceful manner and sort of the ease is gone, I felt. So it's like the aging part of it is definitely part of what makes this interesting to me, at least.
Yeah, there's definitely a reliance more on props for humor
Mm.
rather than physical antics. Um, he does some things. I'm not sure how much. Like, there's a whole documentary, a making of documentary called Buster Keaton Rides Again, which was made at the time while shooting the movie, in which they argue. Keaton and the director Gerald Potterton, they have this. They have these arguments about what the stunts should be, or what should the jokes be, and how should they work. And Keaton is insisting on doing more dangerous things, but the director is like, no, you can't do that, it's too dangerous. Like, there's a whole scene where he's supposed to, originally I think the conception was that he was going to do this on a bridge. So we need to set this up a little bit. The reason it's called The Railroader is because he arrives in Canada and he sees this sign that says Pacific Ocean is 4,000 miles that way. And
Mhm.
so, well, he starts walking, but he encounters this little rail car, motored car. It's not like one of those old cartoon hand cars that you just seesaw back and forth. It's a rail car, and he just gets on it, accidentally puts it in gear, and then that's how he gets across the country. But so there was this one stunt, I think, if I remember correctly, he was supposed to ride across this railroad bridge, but try to be looking at a map at the same time. So he's holding up this giant map, and the map is supposed to hit him in the face. And but because he's on this bridge, this has an added element of danger of losing your balance and falling off. And so he's pushing for it to do the stunt, and the director's like, no, that's too risky. So they end up doing that gag, but not on a bridge where something bad could happen. It's just on this level ground where, and it's funny. The gag, it works still. But Keaton was, yes, he was old, but he was still pushing to do more stuff, which is endearing.
You're reminding me of Tom Cruise right now, because this is something that McQuarrie was saying, was like that Tom's 61, I think, and he's like, this guy can't be stopped. Like, you don't tell him no. If he has a crazy idea in his head of what he wants to do, just do it. Because he just fires people who say no. Like, he's just like, get out of here. I don't want to hear that. You don't say no to him. You say, let's figure out how we can make that work. You brainstorm.
But you can do that when you're Tom Cruise. You're still as, when you have as much star power as he still has. Keaton didn't quite have that pull. He was 70 years old. This was long past his heyday. He was making pretty good money towards the end. I've read that he was making like 6 figures from all of his TV commercials. So he had a lot of pull, but not this kind of pull. And it's important to remember this is not something that he conceived of and started shooting. This was an advertisement. Basically, it was a travelogue it was funded by the Canadian government to promote travel in Canada.
I was about to say, by Canada? Yeah. See Canada now.
Yeah, in my opinion, doesn't really do the trick. Canada's beautiful. You do get some shots of the cities and countryside. There's a great shot when he arrives to the Canadian Rockies, and you can just see them in the distance. But it feels like the director really just wanted to work with Keaton and wanted to make a comedy movie. So that's what they did. And I think it's great. It's nowhere close to being Keaton's best film, but for this era, it's far and away. It's one of his. I would put it above some of his 1920s shorts. It's really good, in my opinion. So, yeah.
Yeah, and we've seen, I watched The Cameraman because of you, and then I watched 7 Chances, which I also loved, and then he was also in Limelight, which I really liked. That was another one that we had picked for one of our lists. So I think I know Keaton because of you, Joel.
Really? Is that right?
Yeah.
I'd assumed that you'd already seen some Keatons before.
No, I hadn't before you introduced him to me. So
I
also fitting that we're ending with one.
Yeah, I did the General a long time ago, and then finally I really loved it. But at the time, I just didn't do a deeper dive. And then I think 2020 I finally was like, I'm gonna just watch his most famous stuff. So 7 Chances, The Cameraman. I rewatched The General. Sherlock Jr., which is also one of my favorites. Cameraman's my absolute favorite.
Yes.
Watched a lot of his shorts, but only the stuff that would be maybe above 3.7, say, on Letterboxd, is what I originally watched. So I decided to go back and watch some of his stuff that's maybe not as well known or not as popular today. A lot of it's not that great, like Paleface, for instance, is a short from like 1923 or something. It's not that great, but then I found The Railroader, and I was like, this is for me. I mean, I don't have a ranking, but it's somewhere in the top 10 Keaton films, in my opinion.
Yeah. The last hidden gem in the best film you've never seen, which is the book I've been covering this entire time, is for the series is 10 Rillington Place, which is a 1971 film directed by Richard Fleischer, who I actually just saw direct a film called The Narrow Margin.
Oh.
That was one of Jacob's picks.
Yeah.
So it's the same director.
I
This
need to
one
see that
stars
one as well. So
oh yeah, the noir on the train.
yeah, yeah, I saw that and was very
Yeah,
intrigued
it's fantastic.
by Jacob's description of it. So yeah, I need to watch that. Go ahead.
Yes. So, Tin Rillington Place stars Richard Attenborough and John Hurt. It is based on real events that happened regarding a serial killer who was doing so at 10 Rillington Place. He was basically like a landlord and had different people moving in and out
Hmm.
through the years, and he would just murder women and uh, put them in the walls and just bury them in his backyard and got away with it for quite some time. So it's a very dark film, but like you said, Joel, it's like strangely uneventful, or you said
Yeah,
bloodless
bloodless,
when you saw it.
which I mean that in both senses of the term. Like bloodless isn't there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of excitement to it. Also bloodless in the sense I mean, there's one scene I think where one girl gets a bloody nose. One of the victims gets punched and has a bloody nose. That's about the only blood
Hmm.
in the whole film, which is strange. For I mean, Hollywood movies they often exaggerate the amount of blood. Tarantino is uh, example number one here. Thinking of Django Unchained, where it seems like the bodies are only blood as they're getting shot. But
Hmm.
this is rather sedate, uh, which is also apt because he uses,
Which is
yeah,
apt. Yeah.
he sedates them.
Yeah.
That's how he
Hmm.
that's the first step that he does towards killing them, and that's not a spoiler in any way. The very first scene in the movie is one of his murders, and you see exactly how he does it. Uh, so yeah,
Right. It's just kind of a commentary on class systems and how the judicial system was sort of prejudiced, not prejudiced, but leaning more towards people who had served in the army versus John Hurt's character who can't read and write and is poor. And so there's a lot going on that's subtext wise,
well, there's
but
also,
as a film, I would say it's not great.
yeah, John Hurt. I believe his character is Welsh. He and his wife are Welsh, and so there's that
Hmm.
subtext as well. Proper English versus, uh, the Welsh country boy sort of thing. That sort of
Hmm.
aspect is in
Hmm.
there. There's a reference early on where he says that there's also some Irish people interested in this apartment. So it's definitely a class thing, even though the killer is not himself wealthy or anything, because he's got this proper manner, because he's very British, because he has that service record from the war, even though he has a history of some violent crimes that comes up as well. He's still believed. So yeah, that is an element of the film.
It's definitely about appearances. So that one I am kind of sad that I'm ending on as far as the hidden gem, but a lot of people liked it a lot more than I did. So I think it's worth seeing, especially for just for the performances. John Hurt and Attenborough's performances are very good,
Who
and it's kind of chilling.
Attenborough, man, he's really creepy actually in this. He's effective in the role.
Yes.
It's kind of funny that the guy from Jurassic Park is played a serial killer at one point in his career. But he's
Right.
pretty
And
creepy.
s- and as effectively as he does.
Yeah,
Yeah. It also just reinforces this like deep-seated terror that I have that you could never know anyone and that you can't go off of just a normal person and trust that they have good intentions.
yeah, yeah. And this
So,
is based on a true story. I'm not sure how accurate it is. I
right.
didn't really read about it after. Did you?
No, at the beginning it says that a lot of the dialogue is taken straight from court
Oh
documents.
yeah, yeah, they're right. I remember that popped up on the screen.
So it's actually quite faithful.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, the John Hurt's character basically, you can see it coming the whole way. that he's going to get framed for one of these murders, and it's really heartbreaking because you really feel bad for him because he's not that smart,
Mm-hmm.
he's not that well educated, can't really read hardly at all, apparently, and yeah, like when he's signing his confession or something like a statement to the police, uh, he the guy has to ask him, if you can't sign your name, just sign an X, and he's like, I know how to sign my name. That yeah, there's you feel bad for him, even though he's not a good
Yeah.
guy.
Feel bad for the
Yeah,
characters.
yeah,
Right.
he doesn't
He
deserve
isn't
this,
either, but
certainly. Yeah,
not that anyone does.
yeah, for
But
sure.
yes, so 10 Rillington Place is good, but not great, worth seeing. And I will end this by announcing that the next series of Watch This List Unplugged is going to be comfort food films.
Comfort food?
Joel was not expecting that at
No, I
all.
was not.
Comfort food films. Comfort films. So it's
Oh, okay.
basically like what movie do you turn on if you're feeling sad, or what movie do you turn on when you just want to restore the joy in your life and remember good times and good
Okay.
days. It's like, how you would go and get your comfort food.
Right.
Like if you were feeling bad, well, where would you go? Would you go to McDonald's? Would you go to, would you get a brownie somewhere or a milkshake? Like it's that sort of
Okay.
vibe.
That makes more sense when you explain it. Comfort food films. When you said food, immediately I'm having trouble.
Joel, most people would know what this means, but it's okay. I'm glad that I got your actual reaction so that I could explain
Yes.
this just in case someone is like
Okay.
of your mindset
Well, that
here.
sounds great.
So, yeah, this is going to be something I thought about doing desert island flicks. Like what would you take to a desert island? I thought of like on your deathbed, what's the things, but then those were so it felt like those would be constrained to a certain caliber or like pressure to choose movies that are like
Yeah.
very
Hmm.
highbrow, whereas comfort food films, somebody could pick Die Hard and that would qualify. Whereas you probably wouldn't pick Die Hard for your desert island.
Yeah. No, and I like Die Hard. I wouldn't pick it even as a comfort food film. I have to think about that.
Oh,
Like honestly, any Keaton movie that I love would certainly qualify, but I'd have to think about that.
mm.
That's a good series. I like the idea.
I'm looking forward to it because I can sort of share in the
Mm,
nostalgia where because I'm watching these movies with the people whose picks these
hmm.
are. And so it's going to be fun, I think, to be able to talk to them about why they love something, why it makes them feel better, and then me get to watch a bunch of movies that make people feel
Mm.
better as opposed to, something dark or disturbing.
Yeah.
Or like Giallo, like I'm doing right now. I love Giallo, but this is going to be a little bit more varied and light.
Hey, maybe at some point, if I see it a few times, The Laughing Woman can be comfort food film for me.
Can be your comfort
That was
film.
so amazing.
Yeah, then we're really going to worry about your mental health and sanity,
Oh yeah.
Joel.
Well, I mean, as if there aren't enough reasons for that already. So,
Yeah, already. Okay, so with that, I hope that everybody tunes in. I hope that everyone enjoyed the series who kept up with me, Joel. It is a pleasure always to speak to you.
mhm.
Follow him on Letterboxd, and we'll see you at the movies.